Hello, everyone. I am Adam,
And I'm Christian.
and this is our new YouTube channel, and we're excited. So what we're kind of doing is we're doing a lot of things, not just one thing. We're going to be talking about movies,
Yeah,
video games,
definitely.
music, things that might just be going around outside of this house or apartment, really. So that's kind of what we're doing. I've known Christian for 15 years, and we've been talking about doing this for 5 years.
Yeah. So we're on schedule.
Yeah, right on schedule. I mean, we like to plan it all out, make sure everything's good. On top of that, we'll be talking about sports. I'm a huge Rams fan.
I'm a
Let's
Vikings
go.
fan.
He's a Vikings fan. When this was recorded, the Rams had just beat the Vikings.
And we had just lost to the Bills the week
And
before, horribly.
And they lost to the Bills. This is true. Yes. So we're just going to be talking about whenever we feel like it. Nothing general, and that kind of comes to the name of this channel, which we're calling Broad Talks.
Yeah.
Which is just kind of a broad. Why don't you take it?
Like just a broad stew of like things we want to talk about. Just like Adam kind of suggested, like movies, even TV shows, anything that's like kind of going on that we'd like to just talk about and discuss with each other. Kind of figure out where each other are at with it too. It's always fun when me and him because we kind of came up with this idea when we'd always go see movies, and then on the way back we'd have like long conversations about all these movies and where we thought we agree and where we didn't, and it's always a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, no, we'll go see a movie, and then it could be a shitty movie, it could be a really good movie. We'll end up talking about it for close to an hour, just sitting on the couch until the early morning. It's crazy. And no, we just love talking to each other about it, and hopefully you guys agree. And if you don't, well, then I don't know what to tell you. Yeah. So for today, we didn't want to like jump into anything specifically, so we thought we would talk about just some movies that we like, not necessarily our favorite films. I'm going to talk about 2 movies. Christian's going to talk about 2 movies, and we're going to kind of just go off one another. And these 2 movies that I chose are movies that I've always liked from the first time I watched it. The moment I walked out of the movie theater, I'm like, that's one of my favorite films. And Christian, what about your movies? Don't say what they are, just explain them.
Mine are kind of like my feelings in general. It's totally opposites of each other, but that I absolutely love for way different reasons. So I wanted to give something that's more serious, and then one that's completely silly and just matches my like colorful and kind of like musical like favorites and stuff like that.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, obviously you like both the movies that you chose.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be
No,
weird
hate
if
'em.
you were talking about movies you didn't like. So I'll do my first movie.
Mm-hmm.
We'll just talk about it for a few minutes. You give your opinion,
Yeah.
I'll give mine, and kind of go from there. So the first movie I chose, if you know me personally, a movie I really like is Whiplash.
Oh yeah. He loves this movie.
This movie is so good for so many simple reasons, which is you're like thinking that's weird. No, that's just it. It's not complex. It's a simple story that tells of a teacher and a student and just their passion for jazz music. And that's simply what it is. I was actually writing about this movie earlier, and I was trying to figure out, well, we were talking about, I'm kind of jumping ahead, but I don't want to forget this point. I looked up the definition of a resolution of a story, in this case, a movie. And this movie, yes, it ends, therefore it has a resolution. It's not like going on forever. But it just ends, and yeah, movies end abruptly, but it doesn't end without any conclusion or any like wrap up. It's just kind of, I mean, the characters are static, and you don't really learn how they feel about one another until the credits are rolling, or at least in my opinion. So kind of backtracking now. It stars Miles Teller, J.K. Simmons, who ended up taking home the Best Supporting Actor Oscar for this.
Mhm.
And it's directed by Damien Chazelle, who actually directed the other movie I'm doing, but we'll get there in a second. And this guy's just really talented. He also wrote the script for 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Oh, did not know that. Holy crap.
And that's completely different from this movie.
Yeah.
That movie, I think, is... we could talk about that movie another day, but that movie is one of the scariest movies I've ever seen.
And one of the side thing for like the smartest advertising for a movie too, because you had no clue what you were walking into until you watch it and you're like, wait, what the hell? I'm now getting a thriller. It was freaking awesome. But anyway.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess we are going to talk about it for a little bit. No, you can't just, yeah, no. John Goodman, little fat, cute John Goodman, who's never had a mean bone in his body, or at least anything I've seen. I mean, he might have.
What he did in Transform was just awful. How dare you?
Oh yeah, he plays one of the, I couldn't tell you his name, but he voices one of the Transformers. But he plays Sully. Off the top of my head, he's in Roseanne. Yeah. He's in a movie called Coyote Ugly. Just all these movies where you wouldn't. He's completely different in this movie where he's like a psychopath in this film.
Oh, here's a bucket of acid for you. You're like, oh shit.
Yeah, but anyway, he wrote that. It's a great film. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It is pretty creepy. There's some disturbing aspects of that film. Nothing too bad, but I don't know. I guess it just resonated with me differently. I thought it was just so creepy.
Yeah, especially with what it didn't show you, but still you're like in the back of your mind creating these horrible situations.
Right.
And you're like, Jesus, man, what is this guy doing?
Yeah. Back to the movie we're talking about, Whiplash. I know. We will sidetrack a lot. I'm just telling you now, we will. And I'm sorry. It's going to be like a Quentin Tarantino film sometimes. But anyway, this movie ended up taking home 3 Oscars, including, as I mentioned, Best Supporting Actor for J.K. Simmons, who is without a doubt one of the best performances I've seen in any movie.
Yeah.
He kills it. I words can't describe. He's just so into his character that it's just, I don't know. Like I said, I can't describe it.
And Miles Teller does a really good job in that movie, but still, like as your backup guy being him, you're like, Jesus, this movie just takes another level. I always imagine him as the yellow M&M.
He does voice the yellow M&M, yes.
See him in this movie being like berating a kid trying to achieve his dreams, but not just being mean for no reason.
Yeah.
Really pushing, but the kid's like, I hate you and like what you've made me into. And you're like, geez, that whole movie.
And see, that's where you and I may disagree. Because I feel like if you talk to a lot of people, you think he hates his character, or Miles Teller character's name is Andrew, and J.K. Simmons' character is Fletcher, just going forward so you don't get confused. But yes, I disagree in the point where I don't think they hate each other. I just think they love jazz music, which is what it's about. It's about a teacher wanting his student to be the best and jazz as a drummer. And he really doesn't have any expectations but the best. That's simply put. But what I was going to say, like the relationship between Fletcher and Andrew is one I've never seen. Fletcher doesn't care about Andrew. He doesn't give a shit about Andrew. He doesn't give a shit about any of his characters in that film. Yeah. There's another character that he bitches at one point. He just loves jazz music, and he wants everyone in that. He expects everyone to be the best in the world while he's coaching them.
Yeah. The only thing like I always get at is you can tell he's pushing. He's really trying to instill like a level of excellence with everyone. But he does push it to a boundary, which I think as you watch the movie, you're like, that's a extreme. Now, the difference is he's super passionate is like kind of what he kind of goes with as an excuse. Not excuse, but he just goes with that he's like, I want, like you said, like the absolute best jazz performance I can get. Where I think he pushes some people too far and they snap, or in this film, like get in a car accident because they're in such a flippin' rush.
Yeah. Yeah. That scene, you know what? If there's one complaint I have about that film, it's that scene and how he runs after that. I just thought it was so out of character from the rest of the movie for him to get in a car accident like that and then to still try to perform. And it's like, I don't know. I just didn't feel like it fit the mold of the rest of the film. Yeah, obviously it showed that his character, Andrew, wanted it more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, it succeeded in that. But I thought it was just kind of out of left field, that scene. But no, I understand why it's there. I just thought it was out of left field. But he cares about, like, Fletcher's character cares about jazz more than anything. And as I mentioned earlier, this movie isn't really about what a lot of people like. I've talked to a lot of people. They're all, this movie, I don't like it because it's bully. There's a lot of words that in today's society you do not use, and they use it every other sentence. If you want to watch it, go check it out. But yeah, the teacher's not afraid to use certain profanity.
Yeah.
It has an R rating because of that. And so he's just passionate for his art. Fletcher is, and Andrew just represents an obstacle for Fletcher. That's how I see it.
Yeah,
I see him as he's an obstacle. He's not a human being. Just
another thing to like complete his dream, essentially.
Yeah, and that brings me to another point. Like in most of these like student teacher, you learn. Like the teacher's always trying to teach the student something. Mm-hmm. He's not trying to teach him anything in this movie. He just wants him to be the best. And that's one thing I respected for this movie. And that's what I love. Fletcher doesn't care about Andrew at all. And you really don't pick up on that till the credits roll, as I mentioned earlier. It's a story about two people that have the same obsession for their art. There's no resolution, as I mentioned earlier, just kind of wrapping things up. In my opinion, I mean, you could argue that there is kind of a resolution.
Do they kind of go with the end of it? Does he just walk away? Like he just walks away from drumming, right?
No. So in the very end of the film, Fletcher set him up after Fletcher got fired. And I'm not going to get into too much details, but Fletcher got fired for how he treated Andrew. Mm-hmm. And so Fletcher ends up finding him just outside of the school.
Yeah.
And he's all, hey, why don't you perform at this? Some of the best jazz, I don't know what they're called, but the people that would give him a gig are there. Mm-hmm. And he sets him up and he tells him to learn certain type of music, and he learns the other music. And then Fletcher goes up to him and says, like, I got you back. This is what you get.
That's what you get. Exactly.
And he walks off the stage, Andrew's character, and he's defeated and he's upset. But then he's all, no, I'm not gonna let this guy win. So he ends up walking back onto the stage, mm-hmm. gets to the drums, and decides just to do his own thing. And he starts his own drum solo, and he continues it, and Fletcher comes up, he's like, what are you doing? He's like, I'll cue you in. Like, he takes control of it. Yeah. And initially, Fletcher's pissed. Uh-huh. But then his passion for jazz takes over, and he's just so in the moment with Andrew. And as I mentioned, I don't think he really hates him. He loves jazz more. So they have something going, and those two really get in sync, and he's really, like, feeling it. And the other musicians there, like, they have no idea what to do. And then the movie just cuts to black after the end of the song. And that's it.
It's kind of like that Sopranos thing where you're like, and then what happens? Like,
well,
do they become best friends?
But yeah, no, you're right. I just think without like some long conversation between two characters in a movie like this, where they talk about how much they respect one another, that doesn't exist in this movie. But they do have an unspeakable respect for one another.
Yeah.
In the end, I think they do, because they both would do anything to perform on this level in jazz music.
And the only thing I ever even with that, it's like he took away his revenge, it seems like. And with that, I guess you're saying like he had a kind of respect for that, being like, you know what, touche. You know, I thought I was going to end your career right here, but apparently you're going to be a BA, so that's always fun.
Yeah. And then we'll move on to your movie. I was just going to say a few things. So the director, back to Damien Chazelle, and you'll find this out when I do my second movie. This was a short because he could not get the funding for this film to make it, but it ended up winning an award at the Sundance Film Festival for Best Short, which then got him the money to make it a full feature film. Yeah.
Wow.
And that's kind of how that movie took off, and the rest is history. But it's so funny how many people I talk to who've never even heard of this movie.
In fairness, you do like a lot of obscure films.
Remember when we saw this movie?
Yeah.
We went to some
the theaters with like really cheap seats.
There was like a hole in the actual screen that we were watching it. I'm like, this is gonna be interesting. But I mean, the movie spoke for itself, and it was great.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
And my last point, and I promise I'll move on.
That's fine.
There's something to say about a movie that succeeds with this much depth and character in a movie that's a little over an hour and 30 minutes.
Wow, I didn't know it was that short.
I think it's like an hour 40. It's not 2 hours.
Mm-hmm. Like the normal.
Oh no, I wrote it down right here. It's 107 minutes. So it's hour and 47 minutes. And it's the simple story. You could explain this movie to someone if they were to ask you what it is in a sentence.
Yeah.
It's not like someone asking, hey, what's Interstellar about?
So,
yeah.
How do we start?
Why don't you sit down? Yeah. Not that Interstellar is a bad movie. It's good, but it's just a lot more.
Oh, yeah.
But, so yeah, that's the first movie we're going to talk about, just to give you an idea of what we're doing. And it's not always going to be like this, but I don't know, some conversations will be better than others, I'm going to be honest. We're learning. This is our first episode, so forgive us. So we're going to move on to Christian.
Yeah, and kind of in the same theme, at least with music, I loved the movie Coco. Now, obviously, way different type of movie. Adam's a lot more serious with that kind of a movie, but I love like the silly movies like Pixar. But they always have that fun, and I'm sure everyone in the world heard this, but they have such fun adult themes in childish kind of presentation. So like with Coco, like obviously the huge point in the middle is your relationship with your father and like how that affects you if you don't have that. And then seeing that whole movie evolve, like when the kid goes into the Dia de los Muertos world and stuff like that. It's really cool. I really love even the world of this whole entire movie. It's what's amazing to me, at least, is the very colorful, vibrant colors, and then mixing it with the death themes, but still being vibrant and in your face. And it's always the whole time I'm watching it, I'm like, I'm engaged. It's colorful as hell, and it's just fun. Obviously, I love, because I'm obsessed with musicals, as you know.
Yes.
Anything that has musical in it, I'm like, okay, I'll at least give it a chance. It's a lot of fun for me. And I love how they mix the music into the storytelling like they always do, but how they even took, like, there's a song, Remember Me, and they do it the first time and you're like, oh, happy-go-lucky song, and then take it and go, oh, later on when you find out another character, I just don't know how much I want to go into it, they take that same exact song and give it a really huge 180 theme, like, feeling to it. It's not happy and expressive. It's very sad and remembering his daughter as he's away from her. So that whole movie is just a lot of fun to watch.
No, it's no, go on. What were we gonna say?
It's fine. I just love the themes for it, like with the family. I always, for whatever reason, Pixar films mess me up with like specifically with the father themes, and I'm like, I don't know why, but it always gets me when like, oh, the father was never there for his kid, and it was because of whatever reason, just immediately, and they always hit this note with me, and I'm like, damn, I'm like crying next to Amber as I'm watching the movie.
Yeah, no, Pixar films just love to just emotionally screw you up. They love it. They have fun with it. I mean, you look at Up, you look at Toy Story 3, just to name a couple. I mean, you could go on and on. Finding Nemo has some pretty sad elements to it.
Monsters Inc.
Yeah, and that just really grabs your attention right away. I mean, Up is a perfect example of that with how it starts, and you're completely in it within the first 5 minutes of the movie.
Oh, yeah.
With Coco, something I noticed with Coco that Disney doesn't normally do, whenever they do a musical animated feature, it's usually Disney Studios. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think this is the first musical that Pixar made. So like Frozen isn't Pixar, it's Disney Studios.
Yeah.
And that's obviously a musical. I don't know of any other one. What about our two guys over here? You don't know of any other one? Any of the Pixar films? Other than Coco that's a musical?
I don't think so. I'm pretty positive it's not.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I can't think of any off
That's
the top
what
of my
was,
head.
and I think because it was that first Pixar kind of musical, I really liked seeing, well, Disney still does a fantastic job, obviously, but I like seeing Pixar's take on it, where it really gives that story building in that movie sometimes is lacking in some of the Disney ones.
Yeah.
But this one, it's the whole way through, you're
Right.
getting a real fun family movie.
Yeah, I agree. And one thing I thought this movie did really well, and this isn't going to resonate with you if you don't remember the advertisement, but when this movie was, like, the first advertisements were coming out, the first teasers, they were showing who's the villain without giving too much away. I can't think of his name. In the advertisements, they showed him as this good person, and it's kind of about him, and you're learning about him, and they don't even really get into the whole Day of the Dead part of it.
Yeah.
And I was really confused. I'm like, what is this movie going to be about? This is weird. And good on Disney for doing something like Day of the Dead, which is obviously cultural for I think Mexico.
Yeah.
And
Dia de los Muertos.
Yes.
For them, yeah.
And I don't think Disney has ever tackled something like, yes, there's Hunchback of Notre Dame, which is about the Catholic Church, not directly but indirectly. And I'm sure there's other movies, but that's just the only one. So good on them in today's like society to do that, and it didn't get much backlash.
No, they I think previewed it earlier in Mexico too.
They did,
and it was super like popular.
Yeah.
And
I don't know much about Mexican culture. I know it's a huge. I'm not going to pretend like I do. I know it's a huge holiday. It takes place on November 1st, and I know little about it.
But like to your point, like that's the whole. What's so great is they didn't ruin, like most trailers nowadays. Like they'll kind of give you snippets into the ending, like with a lot of these superhero movies and whatnot. And you're like, well, I wish you would have just left that out so I could have watched it. And then with like you're saying, this movie they kind of misled you with the advertising, which was amazing, because then you walk in, you're like, okay, we're getting a cool movie about this guy Ernesto, awesome. And then you turn around like hour and a half-ish or so into the movie, you're like, oh no.
Yeah, you realize he's not this great guy.
Yeah.
And no, I think it was very smart of the advertising campaign for that film. Disney they come up with the best ideas. They really do.
My weird little fact about this movie is that it's still John Ratzenberger. I think it's Ratzenberger. He's the guy that's in every single Pixar movie.
Yes, he's been in every Pixar film. You're right.
And then I don't even remember him in this movie, but he has like one line.
You know, it's funny. I think it's one of my friends and I were looking at. This is the one movie, and I couldn't tell you what it is, but he was in this. We did find it. But if you guys don't know what the hell we're talking about, the same character. Okay, so Pixar uses the same actor. He plays Ham. He plays the Underminer in Incredibles. He plays the School of Fish in Finding Nemo.
He plays the Yeti in Monsters Inc.
He plays the Yeti in Monsters Inc. It's the same. And he was also in Cheers for a small stint. So
I wish I had my glass.
And he's just, I don't know. They've invited him back for a few. And there's a few actors in the Pixar universe that they invite back.
Yeah.
Um,
They've
Re-
just, for whatever reason, he's
the
their
one
one
that's
guy they make sure is in no matter what.
No, you're
they
right.
put him in. It's so
the
weird.
only other one I could think of, and I don't know his name, it's who voices Rex, also voices Mr. Incredible's boss.
Oh, wow.
in The Incredibles.
Did not know that.
Yeah. It's a small part, but his voice is obviously very unique, Rex's voice. And
Yeah.
it's very easy to notice that.
It was so sad that this is the first time after this movie that I noticed that character was in all those movies. And I felt kind of like with other movies where I'm like, wow, I'm really late to this party.
I think he was actually a pretty big role in WALL-E. I think he played the
I think he plays one
the
of the
captain
Yeah.
in which is a bigger role than he normally plays. I mean, Ham's a big role in the Toy Story series, but
like to your point, he's mainly like those side one. I think in Monsters Inc. he plays a pretty big role too.
well, he plays the snowman.
Yeah, which for a bit helps Mike Wazowski out, right?
I was
Or is
wrong.
it-
Jeff Garlin plays the captain.
You.
I was completely wrong. He plays John in WALL-E, and I have no idea who that is.
That's what I
Just
love about it, though.
John.
Just
Oh
some
yeah, I know
random
who
guy.
that is. Oh, Sigourney Weaver's in that. Okay, we're getting off
Off topic,
topic
yet again.
Yeah, we will do that. But yeah, no. Anything else you have to say about Coco?
No, if you haven't seen it, definitely watch it.
It's-
It's so much fun.
Yeah, it's one of the better Pixar films. I actually haven't seen every Pixar film. I did get around to seeing this one. Bring some tissue.
Yeah.
It's a sad one. It's good though. It's colorful.
So much fun.
All ages you could take something from this.
And this movie is one of the few times I've listened to because they'll do the soundtracks in multiple languages.
Right.
But obviously this one is kind of intended to be in Spanish, and they have that soundtrack, and I'm an English speaker obviously, but I still love listening to the entire Spanish album because it just has a different twang to it with certain songs, and I really, really like it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll move on to our next movie.
Sure.
Which I kind of mentioned. Some of you might have figured out what I was doing because I said it was the same director as Whiplash. I figured keep it simple. I was going to do his other big film, which is La La Land.
Oh boy.
Yes, same director. And the only other character that's in it is J.K. Simmons. So it stars Ryan Gosling, Emma Stone, and J.K. Simmons. And who's the artist that's in it? I can't think of his name.
Which artist are you talking about? John Legend.
John Legend
There
is
we
in
go.
it. Yes, it's not a big
Almost.
part, but he is in it. So this movie is a musical.
Oh yeah.
If you don't know.
So did I watch it? Yes.
Yes. We watched it, and this guy right here, I love musicals too. I do. I love musicals. He told me, he saw it before me. He's like, I don't think you're going to like it, Adam.
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking
So
about?
great.
I was offended, and I hadn't even seen the movie yet. I was all like, what do you mean I'm not going to like it?
And
Like,
that's the thing. I loved the movie, but I was like, I don't know if he'll like it. Might be a bit too cheesy, but
yeah.
as you're just gonna find out, you fucking loved it.
Oh, it was great. But just some interesting things about this movie. So back to the fact that Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone are in it. I don't know if you've noticed, but off the top of my head, I wrote this down right before we started this. They've been in 3 films as the main characters, which is Gangster Squad, Crazy Stupid Love, which is you and I love that movie, and La La Land.
Yeah.
They clearly have good chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly. And it's shown on every film. Well, I never saw Gangster Squad, so I can't speak for that one. But Crazy Stupid Love in this movie,
really good.
really good chemistry. So just kind of going on from there, let's see.
Like with their relationship too, kind of to pause on that. The other ones, like Crazy Stupid Love, they never really had to show too much of them not liking each other.
Right.
And in La La Land, they take that extra step, and it actually is really So I was like pretty impressed because I was like, oh, can they only do the liking each other and you believe it?
Yeah.
But no, they're great actors, as we found out. But I was like, oh, this is really pleasantly surprising, and I was actually really happy with it too.
Yeah, and I remember when this movie was being made, I had a good feeling about it. I remember hearing about it. Our friend Kurt told us, or he told me about it, and he knew I loved Ryan Gosling. I do. Emma Stone's great too. But
Ryan Gosling.
But Ryan Gosling, yes. But I remember he told me it was a musical, and I'm like, and no credit, or not trying to take credit away from them, but I personally did not know Ryan Gosling or Emma Stone in a musical setting.
Yeah.
I'm sure, well, as we know, they can sing, but I will say that the singing in that film is not why it's great. No. Whereas a lot of, like, you take like Wicked, obviously that's a stage.
Way different, yeah.
Yeah, that's way different. That's probably, okay, let me think of a better one. Les Mis, even though there are some pretty shitty singers in that. But
one specifically.
Yes.
One very bad singer.
Yes. Russell Crowe. We'll just say it and move on from that. But man, he is a terrible singer. But Hugh Jackman, he plays Jean Valjean.
Yeah.
He he started in theater and on stage, so he's had some experience. But that's more of a musical. That's what's, I would describe La La Land as a movie for people who don't like musicals. It's the musical for people who don't like musicals.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how I would describe it. And one theme that you might have noticed from Damien Chazelle, he clearly likes jazz.
A lot.
Yeah, a lot. So much so that all of his protagonists in his films, up until a couple of weeks from now, are jazz musicians. The protagonists are.
Yeah, unless, again, if he learns to play jazz musician, like drums in the beginning of that Neil Armstrong movie, I'm going to be amazed.
Yes. So yeah, that's the other movie he's making. He's making First Man with Ryan Gosling, and it's about Neil Armstrong. So he clearly likes to embody jazz into his films. He loves it. And I don't know much about him as a person. I didn't read much about him, but I know he wanted to do a musical, and he wanted to do a lot of themes from older musicals. He had mentioned Cabaret, which I personally haven't seen. I want to watch it now that I know that he took little things from
out
that.
of it,
yeah.
I've listened to parts of it.
Yeah, I don't think I even...
Our friend, the guy who introduced you to it, he was in it.
Who?
Kurt. He was in a version of it.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
anyway.
There you go. I mean, credit where credit's due. Damien Chazelle he won Best Director for Motion Picture, La La Land. He did not win for Whiplash, unfortunately. He was 32 years old. He is the youngest ever to win Best Director at that age. This guy has a bright future.
Oh,
he clearly knows how to make a good movie. I haven't seen all his movies. I've only seen these two and the short for Whiplash. All of which I love. Like, it's not just like, oh yeah, they're good movies. No, they're some of my favorite movies, and it happens to be the same director. So this guy is talented. I mean, he has a very bright future. He's, as I mentioned, he's making that movie The First Man, which you might have heard of. It's a biopic, since we don't get enough of those in today's society. It's just another biopic, and on a character they haven't done one on. Not character, person.
Yeah, I always thought it was weird how, like, I think there's a certain thing you like in both of these movies is, like, the endings. They're not your traditional kind of endings for that kind of a movie.
No. I mean, they're different, whereas depending on who you ask, I don't think there's a resolution for Whiplash. There's a resolution for La La Land.
But it's not your typical musical kind of an ending.
No. Not at all. It's a great ending, though. And I argue with people all the time because people say it's a sad ending. And I'm like, no, I think it's fulfilling. They both had their dreams. She wanted to be a famous actress. He wanted to own his own jazz club.
Yeah.
They both did that. They couldn't do that together.
Yeah.
Because obviously their love interest in this. And in the end, they find out that those two worlds don't go together.
Yeah. They just couldn't make it work.
They couldn't make it work. But there is a scene in the very end where, like, the whole what if scene. Yeah. And that just I'm getting chills just thinking about it. It's just such a sad scene.
It basically sums up the entire movie and then gives you, okay, here's what, like, you basically have that moment where they sit and watch, like, oh, what if, like he's saying, and it goes through it and you're like, oh, this is where people feel that sad ending. but you have to like sit back and realize, oh, it's not sad. It's just unfortunate they couldn't make it work out, but good for them because they achieved what they wanted.
No, I get so like into it when someone's like, "Oh, it's such a sad movie." I'm like, "No, it's not." Like, think about it with like a positive like feeling, like they both got what they wanted. And there's that scene where Ryan Gosling looks at her and he nods like, "This is what we wanted."
That's what I always thought, because I initially had that like sad reaction because I was like, "Oh, you don't." I think it's because my selfish want for them to both be together, because also you love them throughout the rest of the movie. You're like, "Oh, why can't you just be together now?"
Well, they spend 2 hours
exactly building
they
that.
Expect you just to forget that and move on.
Like,
so yeah, it's kind of funny.
Yeah, it was crazy. It's one of those cool musical, and the music is so good in it. I love what's that song that Ryan Gosling does? Like that same
City of Stars.
Yeah. That song, they kind of like in the Coco thing, they kind of use it in two different ways that are really
No, you're right.
positive, and they have that obvious. I just love that duality of just picking a song, going like, let's toy with some people's emotions here.
Right. And then just one thing I normally do, I do this with almost every movie I watch. Right after I finish a movie or a television show, I go on IMDb, and I urge all you guys to do this. IMDb is great if you haven't used it.
Mm-hmm.
I did close it for some weird reason. But if you scroll down on any specific film, there's trivia, and it is all very trivial, but it's interesting. And one thing that popped out to me was it took an entire year for the editor and the director to edit this film, just to edit. And I had looked online, and it doesn't normally take a year to edit these types of movies, but that's just the amount of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Detail.
Yes, thank you. That they put in this was just huge, and it was very important to Damien Chazelle, and I can't remember the editor's name, and I think I wrote it down, but I'm not going to look for it. But props to him too.
Yeah.
And it took home, I think, 6 Oscars, 7 for about 2 to 3 minutes until they realized they didn't win Best Picture, and then they gave it to Moonlight.
Great.
So only movie to ever have done that. So good on them. Yeah.
7 minutes of almost having that award.
But yeah, so we were going to talk about 4 films, but we're going to talk about 3 because some people don't find it important to charge their camera before we start this. By the way, big shout out to Derek and Kevin. They're not on camera. This wouldn't be possible without them.
As I shit on them.
As I shit on them, here they are. They're not in frame. You don't know who I'm talking about unless you know them. But no, yeah, this is something that Derek's been interested in doing for a while too. So we'll just wrap it up here. These are just movies, not our favorite movies, just movies that Christian and I
really like.
And he had another movie to talk about, but we'll have to save that for another time.
Yeah.
Hopefully you like this. This is a very rough draft of a first episode.
Oh boy.
It's shit. We know it. And maybe we'll try to do something other than movies next time. I don't know. We haven't even talked about it.
It'll be fun.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Keep doing it.
Yeah. But this was Broad Talks. Make sure to punch that like button. Okay, cut that out.
No, I say we keep that.
No. Be sure to subscribe and keep checking in. We'll try to get an episode. I'm not going to even hold ourselves to anything.
No.
Hopefully another one comes out by the end of this year.
That's all we can promise you.
There you go. You start small, then you get big. And that's anything I've learned.
It took us 5 years to actually do this.
Yes.
1 year is fine by me.
I know.
Another episode.
Yeah, we'll see you next year. Be like a holiday special.
That no one asked for.
We'll wear sweaters. It'll be a whole thing. But anyway, that's what we do. La La Land, Coco. And Whiplash in reverse order. I don't know why I said it that way, but yeah, 2 movies that are very similar, 1 movie that isn't. But anyway, I'm Adam.
I'm Christian.
Thanks for stopping by
for Broad Talks.